Welcome to Ignite Finance. I'm Joel Bhagwandin. Our guest today is one of the most influential voices in Caribbean finance. She has guided a regional stock exchange through major transformation, introducing the junior market, launching the United States dollar market, and positioning it as a globally respected player among emerging markets. With decades of leadership experience across both the public and private sectors, she is known for her commitment to transparency, innovation, and financial education. She's also the author of On Leadership, Discipline, Discretion, and Daring, and a strong advocate for market growth across the region. She's in Guyana today as part of her team's ongoing effort to deepen regional capital market partnerships. Please welcome Dr. Marlene Street-Forrest. Welcome to Guyana.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be in Guyana and to be on your program today.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for your frequent visit and all the conferences, which signals your confidence in the market. And I hope you see Guyana as an anchor for regional growth.
Definitely.
So to begin with, how would you describe the full role of the Jamaica Stock Exchange today, especially in the context of regional economic growth?
The Jamaica Stock Exchange is really the heartbeat of the financial market. It provides that platform for persons to buy and sell securities on the exchange. It also acts as a fair, efficient market to mobilize the capital for businesses and also to assist with the ordinary investors to be a part of that process in terms of wealth building and wealth creation. As you may know, the Jamaica Stock Exchange has been considered one of the best performing stock market in the world in 2015 and 2018. And it is playing its part in terms of looking at markets and seeing where we need to go in terms of best practices and also in terms of how global finance is being shaped.
With that being said, you're certainly correct, because I'm a numbers guy. And just before coming to this interview, I was just checking to see and comparing Jamaica's stock market capitalization, which is about 55% of your GDP, in contrast to ours, which is just about 3 billion, which is about 10% of GDP. So that validates your point about the importance of the stock market driving economic growth. It also tells of the market culture and behavior, because one of the reasons here in Guyana why our stock market is pretty much not as active and efficient as yours, and that the huge driver of growth is because of the culture of our market, where companies here are they are not too comfortable to list on a stock exchange, to go public, because you will be subject to far more scrutiny, greater scrutiny and regulation. So that's something we could talk about later. Now, you've overseen major reforms at the stock exchange. Can you walk us through some of the key milestones in that transformation, including the creation of the junior market and the US dollar market?
The stock exchange is 55 years in existence, and we started as a mutual company. And during that process in 2008, we demutualized. What that means is separate the regulatory functions from the commercial functions, which is critical to market development, because what it means is it provides more confidence for investors and issuers that the market will be properly regulated, properly managed. And that's a key to getting the groundswell that we have had in terms of the number of investors in the market. And then what we looked at is, yes, you have the main market, which provides for large companies to list and to continue to have access to capital. But what about small and medium-sized companies? And at that point, we said we had to do something to incorporate those small and medium-sized companies within the financial sector, let them have access to equity capital rather than, and including debt capital. So in the collaboration with the government, we launched the junior market. The junior market is critical to the growth and development of the market, because what we did was to now woo young companies to come to market based on a particular strategy. One of the things we would have done is ask the government for concession, tax concession. You spoke about the fear of coming to market. So you want to encourage them to come to market. One, there will be no penalty in opening your books, whether you were paying tax or not. Then there's a tax concession for corporate tax, 50%, no corporate tax, and another 50% on the prevailing rate. Now that is important because what it does is to encourage young companies to come to market and have that monies plowed back into the business to grow. But the catch to that is corporate governance would have to be a linchpin of that particular equation. Yeah. And we saw where our brokers went out and got these companies, encouraged them to come, they access capital and grow. And that's a formula that has been used by other exchanges since. So that is good. The other thing is the US denominated market. As you know, in the financial sector, you want to edge against inflation, you want to edge against the movement of the currency exchange rate. And we launched that market just to ensure that persons had options. A market is not a market until you can provide each person with risk management tools with options. And so we launched that market as well. We did also launch the bond market, because while we say a stock market, it's really a securities market. Right. So you have the bond market, you have the main market, you have the junior market, you also have the US denominated market, and recently what we launched was the private market.
So it's pretty much advanced.
Yes. So
relatively advanced.
Yes. You know, what we do is we punch above our weight and we track what other markets are doing. Right. Obviously, we are small in size, so it will be as equated to our size. But again, the most important thing is our corporate governance. We have been known, and when we got recognition, one of the things that was said is not only is it that it is in terms of the growth of our index, but it is our governance. And so I want to underpin that the growth of the exchange is one that has been fostered by the governance structure.
Approximately, how many companies are listed on the market?
We have 102 companies listed on the market, but 155 securities. Okay. Because obviously there are securities, whether it is equities, ordinary shares, preference shares, bonds, listing on the private market through the exempt distribution framework, so many others. So it's 155 securities.
What percentage would you say make up SMEs?
It's almost balanced now. Can you imagine? The growth of the junior market has accounted for that. So we have about 45 companies listed on the junior market, and the rest would be on the main market and the, yes.
In contrast, we have 15 registered companies listed on our stock exchange.
Yes.
Not as advanced as yours.
But it's a start, you know, so you know, you can move on to having more.
And,
yes.
And how would you say efficient is the market, the stock market?
The stock market is very efficient because what we use is the latest in technology. So we have the NASDAQ matching engine platform, which is tightly coupled to a depository, which is also electronic. And so what happens is you can't have things like over trading. We are with the global standard of T+1, which means that it is trading plus 1 day, and then you get the proceeds of your trade. So that's efficiency. We have a market surveillance very active electronic market surveillance that tells you whether you are looking at the possibility of things like front running, etc. And then the Regulatory and Market Oversight Division, which is what I spoke about in terms of demutualization. They will come in and probe to see what might be happening in the market. So very efficient. The companies must do ongoing disclosures, and those disclosures are scrutinized. The companies upload their information in terms of these disclosures automatically. So we rely heavily on technology.
Excellent, excellent. There's growing interest in establishing a junior market in Guyana. Based on your experience, why is a junior market such a powerful tool for developing economies?
The junior market is an excellent tool because when you look at, if you disaggregate in terms of Guyana, Jamaica, all over the Caribbean, most of the companies are small and medium size. And those are the companies you want to attract for access to capital, especially in Guyana, where economic growth has taken off. You know, and these companies are going to want to have capital, are going to want to have patient capital. Then it is very important, extremely important, that you look not only to bank financing, which, as you know, you pay the price in terms of interest immediately, while with the market, junior market, it gives you time to grow and to mature, and then you can pay even dividend, but your shareholders are going to be waiting on you.
And the regulatory cost as well is appropriate to match the wherewithal of the SMEs.
That is correct.
Right.
That is correct.
Importantly.
It is important. And just to tell you that for the Jamaica Stock Exchange, we the cost for an SME in terms of listing is 50% less than a main market company. Mm-hmm. And also, in order to grow that ecosystem, the brokers, the lawyers, and accountants work with these SMEs to ensure that it is not prohibitive for them to come to market.
Excellent. For companies in Guyana who are ready to scale, what are the steps involved in listing on the Jamaica Stock Exchange?
Okay,
briefly.
So the steps include, obviously, a good business plan. You make a plan ready so that your potential investors can know what you are going to be dealing with. And then if it is the junior market, you have a prospectus. That prospectus is reviewed by the authorities, Financial Services Commission, and by the stock exchange, approved, and then you can go to market through a broker. You go through a broker. If that IPO is successful, and in Jamaica we have not had an unsuccessful IPO, then the company comes to the Jamaica Stock Exchange, applies to be listed on the exchange. The application is reviewed, they sign a listing agreement, and then the security can be listed. Obviously, this is quick because, you know, you have to look at the board of directors, all of that, the governance structure, before that company could be listed on the exchange.
Does the JSE offer any sort of support to help companies prepare for listing, particularly the SMEs?
Definitely. The Jamaica Stock Exchange goes out actually and look for companies. So we don't wait for companies to come to us. We actually go out and say, look, you could be a good candidate, and let us take you through the paces of what to do. And then there are other institutions that we partner with that will help them to do their business plan, etc., to come to market. We require, for example, for the junior market, a mentor, and that mentor stays with that company for the period of time that the company is listed on the junior market, which according to regulation must be at least 15 years combined between junior and main.
This week, the GSE partnered with the University of Guyana to hold Money Week. Why is financial literacy and direct engagement with young people in particular such a key part of your strategy?
It is very important to get the demand side, which is the investor, ready for the supply side, which is the issuer. Because if the issuer puts a prospectus out and there's nobody who understands the market, one, there is not going to be the supply of capital to them. Two, just simply talking about wealth creation, understanding what they can do in terms of having that money, how to invest that money, not only about putting it into a bank account, but what is it about wealth and intergenerational and generational wealth. So we want to bring that to the table. We know that nowadays, especially the young people, some of them are not thinking about a 9 to 5. They are thinking about being entrepreneurs. And you want to encourage and show them what it is to be an entrepreneur and how you go about that. So it is very important, and it's very important also to start from the young, because what we find is that they take that information back to the household and it populates that household and continues to grow, so that even in Jamaica now, we have 23% of our adult population investing in the market, because the major emphasis is market education.
I like that, because the efficiency and the degree of advanced nature of the market is important, because particularly for the target market, the young folks that you're targeting, who with that entrepreneurial kind of pursuit, you can't trade on an inefficient stock market.
That is
right. Speaking of which, what is the daily activities in terms of volume of trade like on the stock market?
You have approximately 15,000 transactions across the market per day.
Per day, wow.
Yes,
right.
it
And
is
that
intense.
Yes. That speaks to the level of how advanced the market is,
yes,
and the level of efficiency.
Yeah.
Because it makes no sense to have that type of activity on a daily basis with an inefficient market, as in our case. So all of that framework that you've described, the technology, the legislative environment, the regulatory environment, how it is managed, etc. Those are some very, very good lessons for Guyana in terms of our own development of our own capital market and infrastructure. Finally, your team has now hosted 2 consecutive investment and capital markets conferences here in Guyana. What has the response been like, and what can we expect for the 2025 edition?
So 23 and 24, when we hosted, we were surprised at how engaging the conference is. What we did, we carried persons from across the Caribbean to Conference Guyana. And so the business people could meet with other fellow business persons. We could discuss some of the challenges, some of the opportunities that are available. And we continued to do that even post-conference. So there was a really positive, the impact we think was positive. And as a result of that, we decided that this would be an annual event, because if you know, with the stock exchange, we are very determined. And so we are determined for Guyana. We are determined to ensure that we have collaboration, we share ideas, and we learn from each other, and so that we integrate. Because there are things that you have that we want, there are things that we have, and our, some of our experience that you want. So it's a collaboration. It's a regional growth, because we are small in number. The Caribbean is small. And so the most important thing to get to be world leaders and to talk with some impact is if we come together as one Caribbean people. So that is why we are here, and we continue to plug at it.
Thank you. So that brings us to the end. Any closing remarks before we go?
I must say that the warmth and hospitality is good, and we have been making inroads. You know, we jointly put on this conference with the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce, and we have been speaking with the regulators, etc. And I think that all told, it is encouraging, and so you will see that we will continue to be a part of your landscape.
Dr. Street-Forrest, thank you for joining us and for the work you continue to do to strengthen capital markets across the Caribbean. We're grateful for your insights and your continued support for Guyana's financial development. To our viewers, if you're a business owner, an investor, or simply someone interested in how capital markets can unlock opportunity, now is the time to start learning, asking questions, and getting involved. Financial growth starts with financial awareness. That's it for this edition of Ignite Finance. I am Joel Bhagwandin. Thanks for watching.